엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.
먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
It's July 8th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with President Yoon Suk-yeol's trip to the NATO Summit. President Yoon is off to Washington, D.C. later tonight to attend the NATO Summit, becoming the first South Korean leader to do so for 3 straight years. He'll be sending yet another strong warning to North Korea and Russia over their risky defense cooperation. The world's largest maritime drills, the Rim of the Pacific exercises, are in full swing with the armed forces of 29 countries in Hawaii. This year, South Korea is taking a leadership role in the 29th edition. France's left-wing alliance is projected to take the most seats in the French parliament to beat a surging far right, with Macron's centrist alliance coming second. The 2024 NATO Summit kicks off in Washington, D.C. this week. President Yoon Suk-yeol will be present for the 3rd straight year, using the global stage to slam Pyongyang and Moscow for their tightening military cooperation. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
For the 3rd year in a row, President Yoon will attend the NATO Summit, this year being held in Washington, D.C. The presidential office announced the trip on Friday, adding that Yoon will also stop off in Hawaii before the summit to visit the United States Indo-Pacific Command.
The summit's held in Washington, D.C., where the North Atlantic Treaty was signed on April 4, 1949, marking the founding of NATO, carries historical significance. Considering the importance of cooperation with the Indo-Pacific region, NATO has extended invitations to the IP4 nations, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, for 3 consecutive years.
As for the brief itinerary, the president will leave Seoul on Monday night. Arriving in Hawaii on Monday, he will go straight to pay his respects at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, informally known as the Punch Bowl, where around 10,000 Korean War veterans and their family members have been laid to rest, along with servicemen and servicewomen from World War II and the Vietnam War. On Tuesday, he's set to visit the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, where he will be briefed by the commander regarding ongoing security issues in the region.
Since 2018, when the U.S. Pacific Command became the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, this is the first time for a South Korean president to visit the headquarters. The visit will showcase the strong solidarity of the ROK-US alliance and serve as an opportunity to enhance cooperation between the 2 countries for peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region.
President Yoon will arrive in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, where he will kick off his NATO-related engagements with bilateral talks with some members' leaders, including new entrants, Sweden and Finland, and the Czech Republic. On Thursday, he's expected to have a summit with the IP4 leaders. Also, after attending the NATO Summit itself, Yoon is set to give a speech at the NATO Public Forum before returning to Seoul. While the NATO members will address the prolonged war in Ukraine, the summit also comes against a backdrop of Russia and North Korea's strengthened military cooperation.
A strong message will be sent regarding the military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, and in response, there will be discussions on ways to strengthen cooperation between NATO allies and IP4 partners.
All in all, the presidential office said that the core concept of this trip is to strengthen South Korea's security through global cooperation. In fact, an official said that there will be an opportunity for just the IP4 members to send a message to Russia and North Korea to showcase the solidarity in the region. While the possibility of a trilateral summit between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo to follow up on the Camp David summit was raised, an official at the presidential office said that while it is open to all possibilities, it won't focus overwhelmingly on arranging one. In fact, the schedule is packed for this trip, and there are still opportunities for a summit throughout the rest of the year. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Then how exactly will Seoul serve its role of sustaining global security, especially with the alignment of Russia and North Korea seen in recent weeks? Our Oh Soo-young spoke with a former U.S. national security official, Victor Cha.
South Korea is emerging as a vital player in global security as President Yoon Suk-yeol takes, quote, courageous steps for peace and democracy amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Moscow's military collaboration with North Korea. That's according to Victor Cha, Senior Vice President for Asia at the Center of Strategic and International Studies. Speaking to Arirang News ahead of the NATO Summit this week, Cha spotlighted the role of South Korea in global security as the country was invited to the annual meeting for the third consecutive year. The focus of the three-day meeting in Washington, D.C. would inevitably be Ukraine. But more broadly, countries will address the strengthening alignment between authoritarian powers like Russia, North Korea, China and Iran, which blur the boundaries between Indo-Pacific and transatlantic security. NATO and its four Indo-Pacific partners, South Korea, Japan, Australia and New Zealand, plan to adopt a strong statement against Moscow's treaty with North Korea to aid each other militarily in the face of aggression.
So I think it's very clearly a direct threat in Europe because this collaboration is allowing Putin to use ammunition at very high rates on cities and civilians in Ukraine, as well as on the battlefield. This NATO summit, I think more than any other, will show how the two security theaters are connected. So just as allies in Asia like Japan and Korea have been helping to defend Ukraine, European partners will have to be critical supporters of peacetime deterrence in the Taiwan Strait, on the Korean Peninsula, in the South China Sea.
Cha said the IP4 countries and the G7 bloc could help bolster intelligence sharing and slap additional sanctions on Russia and North Korea, given the futility of such efforts in the UN Security Council, where Beijing and Moscow hold veto power. While there are no plans for a three-way meeting between the leaders of South Korea, the US and Japan during the NATO summit, Yoon's office said Friday that it is open to all possibilities. Cha emphasized the need for a trilateral collective defense declaration against the Russia-North Korea axis.
I would hope that they make some sort of collective defense declaration, that the security of one is tied to the security of all. This is something that the United States has wanted the three allies to do for quite some time. For domestic political reasons, it's been difficult. But what happened between Putin and Kim really is kind of a clarifying moment in terms of geopolitics and geostrategy, and the allies need to assemble in response to that.
Going forward, as South Korea's role grows in global security, Cha acknowledged the need for bipartisan support for Yoon's foreign policy to become a responsible global actor that stands up for freedom, democracy and human rights.
If Russia wins the war in Ukraine, and if China takes over Taiwan, neither of those things are good for South Korea. What we often like to say, and I don't know how true it is anymore, is that domestic politics stops at the water's edge, meaning that as much as political parties fight at home, once they're abroad, they're united. So obviously, it would be nice to see bipartisan support for South Korea's foreign policy.
He said Seoul is gaining recognition for its humanitarian assistance and wartime support for Ukraine and its plans to aid Kyiv in reconstructing the country.
So this really is Korea stepping out on a global stage. It's welcomed, I would say, by every country in the world to see Korea, the 12th largest economy in the world, playing this very important role. So I expect when Yoon goes to the NATO summit, I suspect he'll get a lot of respect from the European leaders for what he's been doing in Europe to help European security in defense of democracy. I think he'll get a lot of credit for that, and he deserves it. He's doing things that are pretty courageous. They're not popular domestically, but they appear to be things that he believes in, and that's what leaders do.
As a guest speaker at the NATO Public Forum, the South Korean leader is to express Seoul's commitment to leading efforts for peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and Europe as a key member of the free world. He is also expected to issue a strong warning about the growing alignment of Russia and North Korea and seek security cooperation on a global scale. 오수영, Arirang News.
The world's largest multinational naval exercise, RIMPAC, is back in Hawaii. And this year, South Korea is taking on a special leadership task, showing off its Navy's upgraded status. Here's our defense correspondent, Fermín at Pearl Harbor.
The Rim of the Pacific exercise, the world's largest international maritime drill, is currently underway in Hawaii. 29 nations, 40 surface ships, 3 submarines, over 150 aircraft, and more than 25,000 personnel are training in and around the Hawaiian Islands until August 1st. Hosted by the U.S. Third Fleet, the biennial RIMPAC exercise began in 1971 to ensure the safety and security of the world's oceans. RIMPAC 2024 is being held under the theme Partners, Integrated and Prepared. The aim is to build relationships, enhance interoperability, and contribute to peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Taking part in this maritime exercise for the 18th time is South Korea. Around 840 sailors and Marines from South Korea arrived in Hawaii last month. The country deployed 2 guided missile destroyers, the Chunmugung Isunsin and Yulgok-i, as well as the Cheonjabong tank landing ship and the Ibomseok submarine. And for the very first time, a South Korean commander is serving as RIMPAC's Deputy Combined Force Maritime Component Commander.
I am successfully carrying out my duties as Deputy Commander of the Combined Forces Maritime Component Command in RIMPAC 2024. Through this exercise, we will raise the status of South Korea's Navy by improving Joint Force Command and performance capabilities.
The commander of U.S. Carrier Strike Group 1, which includes the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier the Carl Vinson, says South Korea's leadership role in RIMPAC sets another great example of interoperability.
Of course, very significant leadership by Captain Moon as the Deputy CIFMIC Commander to help direct all of our naval forces, not just my task force, but the amphibious forces, the maritime patrol forces, and everybody participating in the exercise. So a very significant opportunity, and great to see the Republic of Korea in that position.
Visitors from around the world came to Pearl Harbor to tour ships from different parts of the world. Almost 5,000 visited South Korea's vessels.
I always see the ship of Republic of Korea on the Instagram page, and I always admire that. And it's so good to be here in person today and to learn about the history and to be on the ship that is been at RIMPAC since 1990.
South Korea will be taking part in various drills until July 28th. Fermín, Arirang News, Hawaii.
A coalition of left-wing parties is projected to win the most seats in the French parliament after a second round of voting on Sunday. The surprise results come, though, despite far-right parties' strong showing in the first round. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The first round of the French parliamentary elections on June 30th saw the far-right National Rally win 33.2% of the vote, while a coalition of left-wing parties, the New Popular Front, finished second. The first round also saw French President Emmanuel Macron's Ensemble Alliance finish third. However, with no majority win, voters cast their ballots in a runoff on Sunday, which saw a very different result. According to projections, the left-wing coalition, the New Popular Front, is projected to win between 171 and 187 seats in the National Assembly, making it the largest party. Macron's centralist Ensemble alliance recovered strongly and is projected to win between 152 and 163 seats. All while Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally is expected to win between 134 and 152 seats. However, France may still be facing some uncertainties as no party won an absolute majority. This would put the country's parliament in political limbo with no clear path to forming a new government. It may be all the more crucial as France is just mere days away from a major NATO summit in Washington and just 3 weeks ahead of the Paris Summer Olympic Games. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, long considered Macron's protege, announced he would resign from his post on Monday morning. In what seems to be a veiled swipe at Macron's decision to call for a snap election, Attal said he didn't choose for the French parliament to be dissolved. 이승재, Arirang News.
So France's left-wing New Popular Front is projected to finish ahead of Marine Le Pen's far-right party in the parliamentary elections. Then what lies ahead for France now? We're joined by Professor Mason Ritchie again. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So Professor Ritchie, let's get to the point. What's behind the surprise second-round result?
Sure. So the main reason really comes down to the way that French legislative politics works. It's a two-round election system. In the first round, people, as we say, vote with their heart, and in the second round, they vote with their head. And so in between the first and the second round, the center-right Macronist collection of parties and a diverse coalition of center-left and even in some respects far left-leaning parties mostly backed out of races where their respective parties finished third in the first round vote. This was the case in about 220 electoral districts. So essentially, this ended up forcing a choice on French voters to either vote for the far right, and that is to say the Rassemblement National, or to choose, in some cases, to vote for a party that people would prefer not to vote for, a party on the left or a party on the right, where traditionally they might not have supported that. So this centrist dam ultimately held against the resurgence in the far right. So, basically what happened is a lot of France's Guillaumes and Céciles woke up and had their croissant and their café au lait, and they went out and they voted for a left party or a center-right party that they might not otherwise have voted for. I'll note also that we've sort of seen in part, I think, a resurgence of the left a little bit in France. This diverse coalition consisting of three parties, sort of major parties, France Unbowed, the Socialists, and the Eco Party, consolidated what is otherwise a sort of fractured left in between the first and second rounds and agreed to work together. And this, I think, marks a sort of resurgence and at least in some ways, a cooperative spirit on the left that was almost dead in 2017 and up through 2022.
Right, and we are still waiting for the full results to come out. But a projection shows that the far-right National Rally is looking to come a close third in between 132 and 152 seats. Isn't this still a great achievement for the party?
Yes, of course. I mean, the main takeaway in France, both from the European elections and now from the snap legislative elections that Macron called and the results that we've seen in the first and second round, is that at the end of the day, France, has tilted dramatically more to the far right over the last 10 years. So if we look at what happened, for instance, in the 2017 legislative elections, that year, the National Rally got a grand total of 7 seats in the National Assembly. In 2022, after the first round, the projections, had them at somewhere between 35 and 55. They ended up with 89. So there's been growth already taking place between 2017 and 2022. And now in this snap election, the sort of median number of seats that they're expected to get is somewhere around 140 to 145. So obviously that's a dramatic growth, a 20-fold growth, essentially, from their results in 2017. And we've seen both in the European election and in the first round of these legislative elections, that there's somewhere between 25 and 30% of the French population that is more or less in support of the anti-immigration, anti-Europe, nationalist populist program that the National Rally wants to put into effect in France.
Well, Macron's gambles have kept the far right out of power, meaning he avoided the worst. But it doesn't mean Macron is in his safest place anymore, or is he?
No, not at all. He got a lot of criticism, deservedly so, for, I think, a rash decision to dissolve the National Assembly the way that he did. And you just mentioned in your spot before me that his current Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, took a sort of veiled swipe at him for having made this decision. I would say, to some degree, the outcome of this is a little bit like a student in math class who gets the right answer, but it doesn't have the logic in the operations to get there, right? They sort of lucked into a correct answer. He did end up pushing back in some respects the narrative of a far-right majority in France, because indeed that did not come to pass in this legislative election, and as they call the Republican Front, or the dam against the far-right resurgence, held. So in that sense, his gamble paid off. But he could have done this, I think, a better way. And the better way would, of course, to have taken the lesson of the European elections, and instead of calling a snap election, to have worked together in the last legislative assembly to answer the problems that France is facing, rather than taking this massive gamble. And of course, he comes out of this himself and his party significantly weakened, and in a situation where the legislative politics and the formation of a cabinet and the nomination of a new prime minister is going to prove to be exceptionally difficult.
Definitely. All right, Professor Ricci, thank you as always for your insights. And again, this morning, we appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
The Korean Football Association on Sunday named Ulsan HDFC's Myung-bo the new head coach of the men's national football team. After months of running with an interim head coach in place, the national team has now have a permanent boss following the ousting of former head coach Jürgen Klinsmann. The KFA said that its technical director Lee Im-seng will hold a press conference on the appointment on Monday. Hong led his K-League 1 squad to 2 league titles in the past 2 years and coached the men's national football team previously from 2013 to 2014. His brief tenure ended with a group stage exit at the 2014 FIFA World Cup in Brazil.
Good morning. I'm Kim Si-young, and this is The World Now. U.S. President Joe Biden continued to campaign in Pennsylvania on Sunday as Democratic lawmakers debated the future of his candidacy following a primetime television interview on Friday that further fueled uncertainty. Biden attended 2 campaign events in the key swing state of Pennsylvania on Sunday, while fellow ranking Democrats convened a meeting on Sunday afternoon led by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries that reportedly included discussion on the future of Biden's candidacy. According to CBS, 4 of those at the meeting said that Biden should drop out, while other sources added that at least 3 expressed concerns for the Democratic turnout in November. Biden's primetime TV interview with ABC on Friday once again showed that visibly aged president struggling to answer questions, which exacerbated concerns following last week's poor debate performance against Donald Trump. California Representative Adam Schiff said on Sunday that he blames Biden's age for his devastating performance, urging him to seek advice from his team with distance and objectivity and decide himself whether he is the right Democratic candidate. Now to Gaza, where an Israeli airstrike on a church-run school killed 4 people on Sunday, including a senior Hamas-appointed government official. According to Hamas sources, on the same day, Ihab al-Hussein, the Deputy Minister of Labor, was killed at the Holy Family School in the west of Gaza City, where a large number of people were taking shelter. The Israel Defense Forces said it carried out a strike on the area of a school where they say terrorists were operating and hiding. Israel has targeted and killed others from the Hamas administration in the past 9 months of war, including the Deputy Culture Minister, senior police officers, and the Deputy Speaker of the Council. An Israeli strike against UNRWA school in Gaza on Saturday killed at least 16 people. In Iran's presidential race, moderate candidate Masoud Pezeshkian has won the country's runoff vote. He beat hardline former nuclear negotiator Saeed Jalili. The result was announced by country's interior ministry on Saturday. Pezeshkian, who is seen as a centrist, reform-minded candidate, won some 16.4 million votes of around 30 million votes cast, while Jalili received some 13.5 million, according to the official count. Pezeshkian said on Saturday that his victory will usher in a new chapter for the country. While the position of president in Iran has minimal authority in making policy decisions, the president will closely involved in selecting the successor to Iran's 85-year-old supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Spain's annual festival of San Fermín began as the clock struck midnight on July 7th, with thousands gathered in the Pamplona's main square. The San Fermín crowd, dressed in traditional white outfits and red scarves, waited until noon on Sunday for the start of the famous running of the bulls. The runs showcase 6 purpose-bred fighting bulls weighing between 500 and 630 kilograms, chasing runners through the narrow streets of Pamplona's Old Quarter over an 800-meter stretch. According to officials, medical reports indicated 6 injuries, including 1 due to goring, with injured participants transported to hospital.
Good morning. Heavy monsoon rain is forecast to pound down on many parts of Korea. Right now, the central region's Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces are seeing downpours. And throughout the day, the capital area in Gyeongsang-pukdo province could see up to 120 millimeters of torrential rain lashing down. So rain alerts in central regions could expand to more parts of the country, and that's including here in Seoul. Meanwhile, Chungcheongdo and Gyeongsang-pukdo provinces are under caution, the 3rd highest on the landslide alerts 4-tier scale. Now, temperature-wise, Seoul gets up to 27, but many southern provinces are under heat advisories. Daegu had a tropical night and will see a high of 31 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Busan and nearby areas will see spotty to no rain today, but Jeju will be under sunny skies this afternoon at a high of 34 degrees. Now, we are expecting frequent monsoon rain this week across Korea. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day and Arirang. Have a wonderful start to the week.
Welcome.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.
먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Monday, July 8th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Choi Ji-hee.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And Im Sang-yeon.
Happy rainy Monday.
Happy rainy Monday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. As usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online over the past 24 hours. We start in the Gaza Strip, where at least 16 people have died and dozens injured after an Israeli airstrike hit a United Nations-run school where people were sheltering, according to the Hamas-run health ministry on Saturday. Israel says it struck several, quote, terrorists operating in structures located in the area of the school. Moving on, Korea's Incheon International Airport has been ranked third on the UK's Skytrax World Best Airports of 2024 list. This marks the first time the airport has reclaimed a top 3 position since 2019. In first place is Qatar's Doha Hamad International Airport, followed by Singapore's Changi Airport. The rankings are based on a survey conducted by Skytrax, which involved passengers from over 100 countries, evaluating 570 airports on an airport's immigration processes, hygiene, shopping areas, security, and overall service. Finally, former football player and current head coach of the K-League's Ulsan HDFC, Myung-bo, has been appointed as the new manager of the Korea men's national football team. This announcement was made by the Korea Football Association on Sunday. The team has been under interim management for 5 months after former manager Jurgen Klinsmann was fired in February following Korea's disappointing performance at the Asian Cup in Qatar. There's been a lot of anticipation about who the KFA would choose, as we're only 2 years away from the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So for those of our viewers who might not be familiar with who Myung-bo is, could you please provide more information on him, Sang-yeon?
Well, he's literally the legend in the Korean football history. So he was the captain of the Taeguk Warriors during the 2002 World Cup. As a defense, he has played in the official rounds of World Cup for 4 times between 1990 to 2002. And Hong already led the national football team from 2013 to 2014 during the Brazil World Cup. And his best performance was during the 2012 London Olympic, when the Korean football national team won the 3rd place at the time. So with that being said, he's now returning as a coach after a decade period. So currently the public sentiment is favorable to Mr. Hong, but there are some football fans of the K-League who are criticizing the National Football Association that they are actually using Mr. Hong as the chess knight for their use. So I think that he will do better than the formal the coach. But I think Hong is currently the right choice for us now.
I think so as well, because he has a lot of experience, plentiful experience, both as an athlete and as a coach, even the coach of the men's national team 10 years ago. Now, Ji, I want to ask you, the men's national team actually has been through a rough patch over the past few months. So I want to ask you, with a new coach now in charge, as a person who loves to play and also watch football, what kind of hopes do you have for the team as we head into the 2026 World Cup?
Well, the decision itself is not a surprise, but then I'm pretty excited because of this news, because as Sang-yeon well explained, Hong Myung-bo is a legend in Korean football. And as a fan of the sport myself, like you said, I'm hoping to see some positive changes and improvements with him in leadership. And firstly, so I'd like to see improved tactics. Because when Klinsmann was in charge, it seemed like the team's potential and strengths were not fully realized, despite having some of the best players in our team. And secondly, I want to see renewed team spirit because South Korea is definitely known for its passionate playing style and, of course, the passionate cheering spirit of the spectators as well, the Red Devils. And we're hopefully going to see that as well. And hopefully, home can reignite that fighting spirit and get the team playing with a lot of heart. And lastly, I wish for a stronger defense because I've watched some of the games in the past where our weak defense led to unnecessary scores by the opponent. And Hong was, as we all know, when he was playing back in the days, he was a world-class sweeper. So hopefully he can instill that defensive solidity back into the team.
Oh, you do sound like a football expert. Well, we all wish for the best of the Korean men's national team and to its new coach, Myung-bo, and that was our news feed for this Monday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. In a world where almost everything seems to be going digital now, more people are using the latest tech to manage even their finances. Take a look at the screen to find out more.
Remember the old days when you had to visit a bank branch, call customer services, or use an ATM to handle your banking? Well, things have changed a lot. Thanks to technological advancements and the move away from face-to-face services during the COVID-19 pandemic, online banking is now super easy and accessible. Now you can do transactions and even apply for loans with just a few taps and swipes on your phone.
Right, so as we're often called the tech-savvy generation, millennials and Gen Z, it seems like the younger generation, us, are leading the way with digital finance. So I want to start off by asking you, T, is this true, and when did this trend of digital financing kick off?
Well, it's definitely true, and we've seen this trend growing for the past few years, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic as well, when everything went contactless. And it's especially true among the younger generation as well. So in the past, people used to physically go to a bank for financial or banking matters, and many elderly people still do because they think it's more comfortable and convenient. However, this is not the case for the MZers today. So let's take a look at the screen to find out more. So based on the graph, it's evident that a majority of MZers, 6 out of 10 that is, have opted not to visit a bank in the last 3 months. And the predominant financial platform used during this period was mobile banking with 99% prevalence, while only 42% had physically visited a bank. So when I think about it as well, I realize it's been a while since I last visited a bank as well.
Me too.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying 4 years back.
I think
that was the last time.
4 years ago, at least 4 years ago. First time it was when I was 20 years old, when I went to open my first bank account as an adult. And the second time was when I lost my security card. So probably 4 years ago.
Okay. Well, I think I believe it was when I had to open a new ISA account around last year, that is. And apart from that, even when you need to exchange currency for traveling abroad, you can easily use mobile banking and collect the exchange money at the airport. So it's become so convenient, and us being tech savvy, we're choosing to make the most out of the tools we have at hand.
Right, and I heard that it's not only millennials and Gen Z, the younger generation, that were spotting this trend. It's really taken off across all age groups, right, Sang-yeol?
Right, so basically the bank online transactions are growing in number, not only the MZers, but all across Korea. So if we look at the deposits and withdrawals in and out of bank accounts for this first quarter, more than 80% of them were made via online. And in light of this change, there are now many new banks popping up without on-site locations, and such as Kakao Bank. And also many bank branches across Korea are now shutting down because the popularity of these mobile application has gone up.
Right. I think it's because with just a few touches and a few swipes, we can do transactions, we can open bank accounts, we can even get loans. So it's definitely, this trend has taken off among all generations. So here in the studio, I want to ask you, do you also use these digital services or digital financial or banking services a lot? I'm pretty sure you have. And as a user, what do you think are some of the pros and cons?
Well, I'm an active user of digital banking, but then everything has its ups and downs. cons. But when it comes to digital banking services, I think there are more advantages than cons because I'm a user myself. And some of them are that they're convenient, of course, and simple to use. And when you go to a physical bank, you often have to take a waiting number and wait for your turn.
Right.
However, with digital banking, you can save time as there's no waiting. The only thing to keep in mind, however, is to avoid using mobile banking apps during the maintenance hours.
Which is often midnight.
Yeah, exactly. But that's often when youngsters, including yourself,
Yeah, we're really active as night owls.
Yes, we often do our transactions during that time. But anyhow, if you avoid those times, it can be very convenient. And also, you can receive real-time notifications of your cash flow and make transactions across different banks. So these services are especially useful as well when you need to minimize contact with people. So it was very convenient during the COVID-19 pandemic.
And I think that another advantage of using these digital banking services is that the banks that we have to visit in person, they have really short operating hours.
Oh, that's right.
Here in Korea, they usually end around at 4 p.m. So for office workers like us, it's really hard for us to actually go to the bank except for lunchtime.
Right.
But for digital banking services, you can use them literally anytime. So I think that's one of the advantages of these services. So I think that Ji-hee prefers to use digital banking rather than visiting a bank in person. So I want to ask you, what about you, Sang-yeol?
Yeah, excuse me. So I do use online bank services, but I rather prefer visiting the bank in person because online banking surely gives you the convenience, but it has some limits because the AI assistant is the one that actually makes the replies. It is set based on this algorithm, and if the inquiries got more complex and deeper, then all you get is this repetitive answer that you should call the customer service center. Then in that case, that would be quite a waste of time because I should have done that in the first place.
Right.
And online banking is not an easy shortcut for adults, especially our parents' generation, because they're not that tech savvy, unlike the MZers. So my parents often ask me, I think I touched this wrong, can you come and fix it? So there's this also potential risk of scams and phishing targeting this old generation. And it has been said that people tend to let their guards down since the launch of these online mobile applications because you can do things with a simple touch. And that's why more people are becoming unaware of applying for loans without thinking about the consequences.
That may be one of the reasons why we're seeing debt snowballing here in the country. And also, I think despite the digital banking services having a lot of conveniences, they're really complex, even for young people like us, because they have so many services available. They have so many tabs that we can click on. So I think that those are the pros and cons of using these platforms. And so we also asked our viewers if their countries are also experiencing a rise in digital banking as well, like here in Korea. And here's what 3 of them had to say. So if we look at the comments, Tasmia says mobile banking has been popular in Bangladesh since 2015 as it's a part of Digital Bangladesh, a dream that was introduced by our government. Benny says here in the Philippines, yes, mobile banking is helpful, especially when the banks are offline but you want to pay your bills. Leon says yes, they are becoming increasingly popular in Singapore too, as mobile banking often integrates with contactless payment options. Also, mobile banking apps allow users to access their bank accounts and conduct transactions. This eliminates the need to visit physical bank branches during operating hours. So based on our comments, we can see that digital banking and digital finance services has really taken off in other parts of the world as well. So now, to learn more about the digitalization trend in banking, as well as other finance trends we're seeing among millennials and Gen Z, we're going to invite an expert into our discussion right after the break. So today we're joined by Ho Jun-young, Associate Professor of Economics at Sogang University. Welcome, Professor Ho, to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you, Professor. So our first question for you today is, what do you think is driving the rapid growth of digital banking, which was what we discussed earlier?
Yeah, there can be many driving forces, but let me list three of them. So first, the rise of millennials. Millennials who have emerged as the main consumer group worldwide are so familiar with digital technology that they are often called digital generation. So they seek new and fresh experiences and tend to prefer handling tasks through non-face-to-face means such as mobile devices. And second, the rise of mobile devices. So mobile devices such as smartphones have become mediums that integrate various lifestyle services for modern people. So the dependence on mobile devices has grown so high that without them, modern individual would find daily life not just inconvenient, but almost impossible. So lastly, the advancements of internet technology has triggered digital innovation. Especially Korea is well recognized as the one of the most advanced internet technology. So.
I see. Well, my second question to you is, Professor, we're also noticing that a lot of younger people are choosing to make their own investments without guidance from experts. Is that true? And what new trends do you expect to see in how the younger generation handle their finances?
So that's true. So according to recent research in Korea, the major source of how younger people obtain financial investment information is directly through websites and applications rather than from experts. So regarding their financial behavior, I think over 80% of them hold high-risk assets, such as stocks and crypto assets. So youngsters show a tendency to actively invest in risk assets centered around a new financial environment based on mobile technology. So also younger people in Korea, although active in investing in risk assets, tend to have diversified investment portfolios rather than concentrated ones and prefers medium risk or lower portfolio over higher risk ones. This is another feature of the Korean youngsters in these days.
Okay, so Professor, then what do you think are the main advantages and disadvantages of digital banking services?
There are pros and cons of using digital services. The advantage of digital banking include the fact that customers can conduct financial transactions more easily and conveniently. Additionally, online banking and fintech services offer lower fees and faster transaction processing, as you guys mentioned before. However, there are also disadvantages to digital banking. The security issues remain a concern, and there are accessibility problems for people who are not familiar with using digital financial services.
All right, Professor Hall, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so as Professor Hall just mentioned, this trend that we're seeing in digital banking and finance is actually part of the larger trend towards contactless services driven by digitalization. So in general, what do you think are some of the pros and cons of contactless services?
Well, contactless services in general, I have mixed feelings about them increasing. While it's comfortable not having, for example, to interact with people all the time when, for example, making orders, I'm concerned about the rise of what's called shadow labor. And shadow labor refers to a kind of unpaid work that seems to be growing in this digital age without many of us even noticing. So a good example would be with the introduction of more checkout kiosks at stores and marts, customers are now doing the tasks that were previously performed by paid cashiers. We've never thought about it though.
Right.
So this unpaid work done by customers is what I'm referring to as shadow labor. And it seems like this type of work is becoming more prevalent in the digital age without many of us even noticing.
Right, because we first created these services for convenience, but on the other hand, we're actually doing more labor.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. Now, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so adding on to what she mentioned, I think the biggest problem would be the lack of communication with the spread of these contact-free services. And there has also been articles that dealt with low literacy of children that were born during the pandemic. And if many things go online, people will have difficulties communicating with each other, and this will lead to the lack of care and consideration to others. And also, I'm glad that, excuse me, I can use the kiosk at the groceries if I only have to buy one or two things in portion. But the flip side there is that someone has lost his job. So I don't think that AI will totally replace the human labor, but there will be some portion of people losing their job. And lastly, we've talked about this numerous times, but adults and even myself are not really used to fully utilizing these mobile technologies. And there's a possibility of scam or cyber attacks by these mobile applications. There has been a recent case where the hackers actually designed these mobile websites as same as the actual banking websites, and this can actually trick not only the elderly but the young people like ourselves.
Right, so I think that these are definitely things that we should be mindful of when using digital banking and finance platforms, not only those, but also when using contactless services. And that's all the time we have for today, but NewsGen is here every morning from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
And Im Sang-yeok.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's mine? Make sure you listen to what I say.